Hey everyone. Like I said, if you can't see or hear anything, let us know. That's always fun with these live streams, right? So welcome. Thanks for tuning in. So this is our post ClarinetFest Q&A. We did it. The presentation's done. So thank you to everyone that went out and watched it. We appreciate it so much, and thank you everyone for the comments that you left in the chat. It means so much to us to see that many people attend our presentation. It's been 2 years in the making?
Yeah. Depends on how your COVID timeline is, I guess.
So it's really cool to see all of this come out like this. And so with the virtual conference and everything, I think it went together beautifully. So like I posted in the chat, feel free to drop any of your questions there. We've got some things that we'd like to talk about as well. So if you can't think of anything, we got you covered. And in the meantime, while we wait for some questions to pop in, I figure we'd go ahead and say a little bit of stuff. There were a couple of effects that we didn't get a chance to cover in our presentation, so it'd be good to go over a couple of those as well, including chorus and looping. So I guess starting from where this all began, right? Like I said, it's been like 1 or 2 years in the making at this point. And this is kind of reiterating our presentation a little bit, but it's a cool story to go over nonetheless. Tim and I have known each other for a long time. So I guess you were, freshman year? Yeah, so he was early in undergrad at that point, and I was sometime late in high school at that point, and we had gone to a summer clarinet workshop together.
Clarinet boot camp. Yeah.
And so years down the road, we ended up reconnecting here in Georgia. And so Tim, you're actually from Georgia.
That's right. I am from Georgia.
Yeah. So we reconnected, and we were talking a little bit, and we, I guess, realized, I'm trying to remember how exactly we came across the topic of electronics.
I remember.
Here, why don't you go and talk about this a little bit?
We're going to pass the mic podcast or old-timey radio style. So, yeah, I'll be randomly interjecting. I don't know if I can handle not talking. But, yeah, we were going to do a joint recital. When I saw that this dude showed back up in Georgia, I was like, hold on. I was like, I need to play with him again, because Dan Gilbert had us doing early morning warm-ups with a partner. So I was like, oh, I know who I want. Yes. So that's how we got started at Clarinet Boot Camp a few ancient years ago. But when we met back up, we were planning a duo recital at our 2 universities here in Georgia. And then COVID happened. So it was like, what now? Right? And what now was that we realized, through our rehearsals, that we both had these pickups and hadn't done diddly with them. And so we started writing our own pieces, and yeah, and then we learned it twice. We learned diptych 2 times. Once for the recital, I believe. Then COVID happened, and then we fleshed this out and thought, okay, well, let's turn this into something that is not just fun for us, but helpful and encouraging for others. So, bring on the questions.
And like I said, if people don't have any questions just yet, maybe it's on the tip of your tongue. It'll come to you later. We've got some stuff to address as well. So one of the things that got brought up at the presentation was the fact that, as can be expected with pedal effects, it can get a little overwhelming at first. For me in particular, as I'm watching a lot of these YouTube guitar demos as they're testing out pedals or not and whatnot, I'm like, these are really cool sounds, but I don't even know where to start in terms of the gear.
And then they got a pedal board that's got like 600 things on it, and you're like,
right. So there's a lot of gear involved.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I often recommend to people is, in terms of starting out, just try one effect at a time first. And so like going in, like one of the effects that I really wanted to do in particular was delay. So coming in with an effect like delay that you can do a lot with, and just getting to know the pedal effect really well. There's a lot that you can do with a delay pedal. So getting to know it really well, trying to know the ins and outs of it and try and figure out all the different ways you can use it. And then, try another effect and see, okay, yeah, I want to channel my inner rock guitarist and add some distortion. And let's see what happens when you combine the two effects. So just, I would say don't feel pressured to get it all at once. Start with the pickup, start with the amp, and start with one pedal. And that's a really great way to start. And yeah, it can easily snowball from there, but it's a fun ride. Like both of us, it's been kind of like a slow and steady build of effects, and we've had fun in every single turn along the way. It looks okay. We've got some comments flooding in.
We want to know how to adjust the delay time to fit the tempo of the piece, Chris. And I know that you've actually, fiddled a little bit more specifically with trying to accomplish, some specificity in time on the delay.
Yeah. And in terms of that, sometimes it kind of gets, to where the point you're just kind of getting to know your delay pedal, where it sits on the knob in terms of like, oh yeah, that's about 120 to the quarter note, that kind of thing. I will say one unique feature that I've really enjoyed on a lot of delay pedals is a tap tempo function. So much like you would tap a tempo in on a metronome, for example, to try and get a specific tempo, a lot of pedals allow you to do that as well. So like this guy down here, this Joyo D-Seed, it's got a knob to finally adjust the time, but it's also got a function where if I tap both of these knobs or buttons at the same time, then I can just tap it once to start the tap and then tap it again, and then that sets a custom delay for me based on whatever tempo I want to go at. That's a great question, actually, because sometimes these knobs can be a little bit finicky and you want something like 0.65 seconds, right? And you have no idea where on the knob that sits. So that's where that tap tempo function can come in really handy if your pedal has one.
Yeah, and we are having a request for a looping pedal. It's coming.
Yes. Okay. So
show it.
Let's do it. So what I've got here, you'll see at the bottom left hand of the screen of this pedal cam up here, you've got this small looper pedal by Boss, the RC3. Boss makes a number of different size loop stations. These pedals are fun because they come in a variety of different sizes with all sorts of different features on it. So this one's one of the more simple ones, which is great to demonstrate, actually. So the basic concept, right, is that you can take short snippets of sound, record them, and set them on a loop. And then you can overdub on top of that. So, you can trace this back to the older days of like recording tape loops, for example, where you record something on magnetic tape and just let it play over and over and over again while you improvise or do whatever you want on top of that. So I can play a little bit of this, actually. So after Diptych, I wrote a solo clarinet piece called Autokinesis, and it features delay pretty heavily with some pitch shifting, but it's got looping set in there as a sort of textural tool. So in this case, it kind of sets up an A minor arpeggio that just kind of undulates underneath while the melody comes in later on top. So what you'll see is that I'll tap the pedal once to start the recording process. I'll tap it again, which will stop the recording and then start the playback. And then from there, I can just do whatever I want to. So we'll do a little bit of looping, got a little bit of delay in here as well. And I'll keep this reverb pedal up on the top left on there as well. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this microphone off because it's gonna get a little crazy. I'll start. It turns out I already had a loop in there, so let's go ahead and clear it.
Clearing.
Whoa. So there you kind of have the basic idea, right? And that's just the beginning, really, with looping. As I'm sure some of you have heard, like there are some great demos out there where you can essentially create like almost like a one-man band kind of sound where you're just layering layer on top of layer on top of layer. There's a Pachelbel's Canon reference in there somewhere. But there's a lot that you can do, even with a simple loop station like this. Some more complicated loopers allow you to toggle certain layers on and off at your free will, whereas this one, it's just like a simple stacking. So that's kind of the basic with looping, and you'll notice that there's a little number on a digital screen down here, and that's essentially like a preset. So if I wanted to save that loop for future use, I could. And I think it's got like 99 save spaces on it. So there's a lot of potential for, say, like setting your own backing tracks and using them on gigs if it's just you, say in like a cafe or something like that. So it's a pedal that unfortunately I haven't used as much as I should. So maybe in the future there'll be more looping demos like that. In fact, in the future, I've got a demo planned for any of you that know the composer Josh Oxford. He's got a great set of looping etudes that maybe when I do a looping demo, we'll include some of those in there.
Nice.
Let's see, what else we got?
We want to know what chords go where. You know, we got the chord that comes out of the piezo barrel, but then how do we get from there through the pedals and then up into this, and what the heck is going on? Why are so many chords going on?
So you can think of it kind of like a chain of Christmas lights, right? You've got your power source at the beginning, and it goes in a linear fashion from one light to the next. So same thing with these pedals. So I'm going to go ahead and try and move this down here and point as we go along.
Yes.
So the clarinet comes in here. So this is a noise gate pedal. And you'll notice that there's a cord that connects it to the next pedal. So in this case, the volume pedal. And the volume chains into this. And then there's another cord that chains it into this. It just kind of works its way around until you get to the final output at the other end of this loop station. This part then goes into the amp. So again, bringing back the whole Christmas light analogy thing, you're just going light after light after light, light all the way through. And some of these other chords that you'll see on here are lines to the power supply. So like on the top of this octave pedal, I don't know if y'all can see this, but there's a little cord coming out of the top, and that's feeding into the power supply, which sits underneath the pedal board. So you can't really see it here, but can't see the cat. She's wanted to say hi. But yeah, all of those wires also are funneling into a single power supply. But yeah, great question. Because yeah, looking at this pedal board, there's a lot going on. But those are the two main ideas.
Yeah. And then your last output goes into the amp you can't see. So it goes from you to the pedals, and then from the pedals to the amp. And then we had another question just confirming that, yeah, we were hearing reverb as well as delay, as well as looping, just to make everything extra tasty just now. So yeah, that is what
swimmy.
Yes, we were swimming in it for sure. So we swam. And Chris, didn't you do something with Bach, Takata, and Fugue, or do something funky with pedals, a la Squonk, but just you?
Yeah, in fact, it's probably on that stack. No, actually, I've got it here. I can play a little bit of this too. So like the Bach, Takata, and Fugue arrangement is one that I've really started to enjoy because it is a good way of combining a bunch of different effects in one piece. It's just a lot of foot switching. And so you've got looping, you've got delay, and distortion and all that fun stuff. So the sort of challenge with the Takata and Fugue, right, is that it's a keyboard organ piece. So you've got not only two hands going at the same time, but you've also got feet going as well. So trying to emulate all of those sounds on a single line instrument is impossible, really. But you can use pedals to sort of give the illusion of all these lines going at the same time. So mainly through pitch shifting and delay. So if I were to play that opening, you can go ahead and leave it on.
All right.
But then through pitch shifting, I can go ahead and add the octave below that to get essentially two hands going at the same time. So yeah, I can actually go ahead and play a little bit of this. So what this is going to do is combine distortion. So you'll see that with this black pedal here. You've got pitch shifting with here. You've got delay over here. We'll also have reverb. Looping comes back a little bit as well. So maybe here's like the first like 30 seconds of some Bach, Takata, and Fugue.
Nice.
Go ahead and turn the delay up. I think there was someone that was at the presentation that was wondering what a squeak sounds like in a delay.
Yes.
And it turns out that's what a squeak sounds like in a delay.
Not bad. Just keep trucking, right? Larry, let me talk about feet for a second.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
And I'll go ahead and say real quick, DJC Beetle, you said you were from Georgia.
That's right.
What part of Georgia?
Yeah.
Tell us.
Come on now. Yeah, where are you from? I wanted to talk about feet because we just saw some very virtuosic feet work from Chris here, and I just wanted to reassure everyone that, you know, he's had tons and tons of practice on the feet. I don't get that involved in my footwork from here to there and everywhere, but we use our feet, you know, playing music these days. So I just wanted to take a second to encourage everybody. We're using our feet, you know, if we've ever played piano, one, you know, and then, you know, going back for the last few years, I see more iPads and foot pedals to switch pages than I do actual sheet music these days. So you have some precedent for this. You can do this. All right. I just wanted to put that out there into the universe. It is possible. And then when you practice, what happens? Oh, we get better. Okay. And that's what we saw here with this Bach arrangement going on.
Looping plus delay plus reverb.
Yeah, so to answer a question about that Bach arrangement too, it's like there are all sorts of combinations. So yeah, you've got like delay and looping. So in that case, it's a delay and looping combination with actually a timbral trill on that B natural, and that this is actually a good segue into another effect. So what I've started to do in that instance instead of doing the timbral trill, which sounds like this normally. You can actually achieve a very similar effect through something known as chorus. So essentially, the whole thing behind chorus, right, is that you're creating time and pitch fluctuations to add texture and depth to the sound. So essentially imagining, right, an effect that can take one person's voice and make it sound like a chorus, right? so sometimes these effect names are super creative. So what I've got down here, you'll notice that there's this like little teal looking pedal down here with some silver accents, and this is an awesome and wacky pedal that I ended up getting from Earthquaker Devices not too long ago. For those of you that are interested, Earthquaker's got some really crazy stuff and some really cool effects. So there are a lot of sounds on this that I haven't even touched yet, but as a basic chorus pedal, it does really well too. So instead of doing that timbral trill, I can essentially just hold the note and it'll do it for me. So it's really great for creating that sort of like almost like a swimmy wave-like sort of texture. So there's a demo for this too, because as soon as I found out that chorus was an effect, my mind as a classical musician went straight to Ravel. And Debussy a little bit too, but so what I ended up doing was creating an arrangement of the first movement of Ravel's Tombeau de Couperin. And I'll do a little bit of delay, a little bit of chorus with this. I'll turn the reverb off, but this kind of gives you an idea of one of the potential ways that chorus can be applied in classical music. It's such a fun effect that I've really only touched the tip of the iceberg of, but it's because, like I said, you can adjust so much on this that you can create some really odd space agey sort of sounds with it. But yeah, any other
Thoughts on the Sabre bass clarinet? You know what that is, right?
I don't actually.
Okay, let me talk about this thing. Yeah, I remember seeing the Sabre bass clarinet come up on a internet search like at least 10 years ago. So from my understanding, it's a bass clarinet that, you know, has the possibility to add something. You know, what that is, that could be up to you, you know, and your abilities to every single note on the bass clarinet. Every key has another sensor on it. So you could like make bubbles blow every time you play an E flat with a bubble machine connected to that. I don't know. So, I mean, that's how I understand it. I could be totally wrong because I haven't looked it up in 10 years. I have never seen one in person. So that's the other thing. And I understand they're a little bit pricey. I think the idea is wicked cool, though. But I just haven't had the opportunity because I haven't seen one in person or got that many ducats lined up to buy something like that. But I love the idea.
And I'll go ahead and address a question that Brad actually just brought up, hey, Brad, hope you're doing well. So he was asking like what kind of pickups do you find work well for this sort of stuff? Because Tim and I both use different ones. I've had my piezo barrel pickup for 2 to 3 years at this point. And Tim, I understand that you really like yours as well.
Oh yeah.
The knob and top. And so there are a few others out there I've found. So like someone brought up another type, the Vega Intramic works really well as well. For me, I've had no issues with the piezo barrel. I love it. And for me personally, like the bonus is that it's pretty affordable as well. So like, I could get like the pre-drilled barrel, the pickup, the cable, everything for like a surprisingly low amount of money. And it was just a really easy really easy entry into this sort of stuff without feeling like I'm spending like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So this was a really great, simple, but works really well as a pickup. So all the other ones work pretty well too. So like for me, like the thing that we've noticed works best for all of these effects overall is the piezo style pickup. Because you can use an external microphone. I've seen people work those really well. But for me personally, I move around a lot when I play. So like the whole mic placement thing outside of the clarinet, I get nervous about. And like I said, the piezo barrel ended up being a lot cheaper than like going out and buying a really good microphone that sat outside of my clarinet or clipped onto my bell or something like that. So yeah, the piezo style pickups have been great with just the way they sense the sound directly, and it's super even in the entire register. Like whenever I try pedals out, I'm going from like low D all the way to like super altissimo high D. And it seems to pick it up just fine. I
like the sound too. Sounds good.
Yeah. And there's another one. I think it's the Roomberger pickups that I've heard also work well. In fact, I think Mike Lowenstern has a review of one of those pickups on his channel, and I like the way those sound too. So as you're shopping for them, one thing I recommend is just making sure you're asking the maker questions about your setup and like is this going to work well with effects
and your goals.
With pedals in particular too, because some of these effects will come with an XLR cable rather than an electric guitar cable. So that's something to consider too. So like the knob and top works well, piezo barrel works well, and outside of that we're still trying stuff. So as we come across more pickups, maybe we'll throw some demos or reviews out there as well.
Speaking of more pickups and demos, I see here that Michelle is asking about, apparently Sabre also has a B-flat pickup now, and these are the type that are an air pressure sensor, which we've had some cursory discussions of these air pressure sensor pickups, as you recall, right? Things that go inside, or things like stickers on rather things that don't drill into your clarinet.
Yeah, so and that's actually really interesting. I didn't realize that they not only that they made any sort of instruments like that, but also that they're available on B-flat.
Right.
But like any of these piezo style pickups, on a basic level, they're going to sense the changes in air pressure. It's essentially how they work. So rather than picking up the sound wave externally. But there's an interesting one. It's the Intramic that works in a slightly different fashion. So instead of having to drill into your clarinet, as I understand it, if anybody on here is familiar with this pickup and corrects me, feel free to let me know. But essentially, it's got like a little tiny microphone, almost like on an antenna, that squeezes in between the parts of your instrument, and it actually kind of sneaks its way to the inside that way. Rather than drilling straight into it. And the pickup itself kind of sits like you kind of elastic it onto the outside of your barrel. So it kind of works in a slightly different fashion, but supposedly it works really well too.
Yeah. And let's see, we had another one here. Oh, the prefab piezo barrels, the barrels that come with.
Yeah.
What have you heard about them?
So I'm actually currently using one right now. And, at least with the stuff I'm using, that a lot of these heavier effects, I mean, yeah, there's going to be a change in sound when you switch from barrel to barrel, but when you're playing a plastic barrel with distortion and pitch shifting, you're not really going to hear the difference. That being said, I would like to have a wooden barrel rather than a plastic one that I can use. So I've actually got a repair person that I'm reaching out to at the moment. So Neil, if you're watching, shout out. So essentially the piezo barrel comes with, in this little plastic baggie, is the hardware to be able to install the insert into whatever barrel you want. So like this is like my stock buffet barrel that I'm thinking about having someone drill into that and install an insert. So that way I don't have to use the plastic one anymore. Because especially if I'm using more like ambient type stuff, like delay and reverb, it would be nice to have that sound difference when you can hear it.
Well, I had that.
Yeah, and you've got one as well.
So I've actually had 2 different barrels drilled in. I got a Muncie, it's some sort of hard rubber or plastic Mainig barrel that I had drilled in, but I got a 68 millimeter one. And the weird thing that I found out about that, through just experiencing it, was the barrel played in tune before I had the hole drilled in, and then it got a little bit too low thereafter, I noticed. So I actually had my repairman drill a pickup into my buffet stock barrel, because I play on an aftermarket one usually when I'm just playing orchestral stuff or solo stuff. And it works just as well as it did before I had the hole drilled in. And, it was sharp to begin with because it was a 66 millimeter and I usually play on a longer barrel. So it, if anything, just made me a little more in tune.
And let's see, air pressure sensor.
Yeah,
What's the name
apparently
of that
it's...
piezo barrel company?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We got that there.
Okay.
So this saber is apparently a little more complicated than we understand.
Yeah, I'd be interested to
Yeah.
look more into that. Thanks y'all for bringing that up.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and address another thing that I often get asked, which is the order in which you put your pedals in your chain. I get questions as far as like, does that matter? Like, can I put the reverb pedal at the beginning or the end and it won't make a difference? The thing to know is that, there's kind of general places in the chain where pedals tend to work a little bit better, but I mean, there's no hard or fast rules. And that's what kind of makes it fun in a sort of puzzle-like sense, where you can just kind of rearrange pedals to figure out what kind of sound works best for you. I will say this little green pedal up on the top right, like I said, it's a noise gate pedal. So, the key clicks usually don't bother me, but like if I'm using distortion, when it's so sensitive and it likes to pick up things like key clicks really loudly, then I'll use this noise gate pedal at the very beginning of my chain. And what that does is that it silences everything below a certain threshold. So if it's a key click, for example, it doesn't let that sound pass on to the next pedal. So that way the distortion doesn't pick up really hardly any of the key clicks at that point. So that's a good pedal that I like to put at the very beginning. Rather than anywhere else. Usually I would say time-based effects like delay and reverb tend to work a little bit better towards the end of the signal chain. But again, if you want to put a delay towards the beginning, all power to you. Like, it could work really well. There's hardly any like right or wrong in that sense. Like, I've also got my volume pedal at the beginning, whereas I've seen a lot of people put their volume pedal at the end. That way they let the sound be affected by all of these effects before they mess with the volume, rather than using the volume at the beginning where you're simply just controlling the amount of clarinet signal that goes into your first pedal.
Which we did in your piece a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So like the fading in and out of the volume pedal ended up being a key component of diptych. Which for those of you that are also wondering about first pedals to get, for me personally, it's delay and volume. While volume isn't really strictly speaking an effect, it's such a useful tool. Because sometimes you want effects to fade in and out rather than just playing on and off. So it's almost like a dimmer switch for your pedals, and it allows your effects to be a little bit more musical in some instances. But yeah, but like I said, in terms of pedal order, just play around with stuff and see what works best. That's been a lot of this past year and a half.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of trial and error.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And
it's all for you, baby.
and some stuff works really well, and then now I've got a list of things in the back of my brain that I know I'll never try again because it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Oh, that brings up a great point.
Yeah, what's that?
So part of what it is to go and try pedals is to know what it is to listen for while you're trying pedals. We were talking about that before we came on here. And some of the main things is when you move quickly between notes, is that effect still coming out? Do you still hear that distortion when you're moving rapidly? I mean, we can move very rapidly between notes. And then the other thing to consider is that effect on my sound still occurring no matter how high I go, is what we've mainly come across. So those are kind of deal enders for us. Those are game enders when it doesn't go up so high. I remember we tried a synth pedal that we were obsessed with, and then it didn't go above G, or right on top of the staff, and we're like, oh no, I need synth way up high, Exactly. So we're still hunting for things. These are not made for clarinet, these pedals, so it's definitely worth trying. And I also, was thinking, Chris, unless it's really cheap, so it's worth the trial and error of bringing it home if you have a receipt or if you got it for cheap is what my personal advice would be. So I've gotten some pedals off of Reverb, and when they're $20, who cares, but when you're going to spend $200, I think it's worth trying to seek out in person and try first, or make sure that you can return it online if you're doing it that way.
Yeah, in fact, I'll show one of these pedals I've actually got on the set here. So, like this little delay pedal, for example, actually works really well. It's made by a Chinese company by the name of Flamma, and they're a relatively new pedal company. I think this pedal came out less than a year ago, and $40. So I was just like, I've already got a delay pedal, but let's just see what else is out there. So I bought this for $40 on a whim. And it's a neat little pedal. So if you're looking for something that's like got a small footprint and serves a basic delay function, then this is a really great and affordable way to get into that. And it's got a few different features on here between different types of delay and in terms of delay time as well. It's pretty flexible.
Nice. Brad wants to know, what do we want to hear in the future, effects wise? What do we want to hear more of on clarinet, maybe?
For me personally, and this was kind of one of my missions at the get-go, was distortion in particular, at least in classical music, because you see some of these effects. Actually, if you search long enough on YouTube, you'll find that there are a fair amount of pedal using woodwinds out there. They're just in other genres primarily. So like pop, funk, jazz, actually in particular. Shout out to the cat again. This is Cake, by the way. And so distortion was one of those ones where it's like, if you search that in terms of classical music, you'll really find nothing. Except for maybe like one or two kind of more experimental works. So that's where Diptych came along, because I was like, okay, we're both classical musicians, but let's get a little crazy with it, shall we?
Yes. Melt my face, please.
And I've got another clarinet solo piece that specifically uses distortion, so you can find that on my channel. It's called Cloudburst for solo clarinet, but that's something I would love to do more of. In terms of some of the other effects that we haven't experimented with yet, but I'd love to, which say like flange, phaser, synth. You mentioned a synth pedal that didn't really work out for us too well. But I would love to find a good synthesizer pedal that works really well on clarinet and just get really funky with it. But yeah, that's a great question. And it kind of opens it up into a larger topic of like, there are so many effects out there. Like what we've got up here is just the tip of the iceberg, which is what makes it so exciting in terms of sound possibilities. So like a wah pedal actually would be really fun to get into. Speaking of funk, and then let's see another one. It would actually be fun to get a more involved looper station as well, because I'd be really curious to get that sort of multi-layer effect going. What are you doing? You just saying hi? So yeah, that's a great question, Brad. So for me, as I'm thinking about new effects that I want to try, it's just like, how can we expand the classical repertoire in new directions? Because something you'll see in our resources link, which I actually put that in the description of this video as well. So in that, you'll find a repertoire list, and a lot of those pieces use delay, which is great because it's a very versatile effect. But it gets me thinking, maybe we could explore some of the other things outside of delay to see what else we can put in classical music, like pitch shifting and distortion, fuzz, all that good stuff.
Let me turn the tables.
Yeah, go for it.
So, yeah, that's what we want to hear. My question to y'all is, what do y'all want to hear next? What do y'all want to hear from us? What do you dream of with the clarinet and plus something else? What do you think would be fun for two of us to do? Y'all got any daydreams about that?
And something I don't know how well it would work, but I've always dreamed of what a Talkbox would sound like with clarinet. For those of you that aren't familiar with what a Talkbox is, think the opening of "Living on a Prayer" by Bon Jovi, and that's a classic example. It's a really interesting effect. I don't know how well it'd work on clarinet because you'd have to have the Talkbox tube and the clarinet in your mouth at the same time. So there's quite an element of control with that. But you never know until you try.
That's true. Well, I think that is a possibility because, there's precedent for that as well, which is the coolest thing about all this stuff is like, we're not just like totally in left field. We're just mostly in left field. But, I played a duet that actually was for 4 demi-clarinets by Bill Smith. So you'd be surprised what you can get done with more than one random, clarinet-like tube in your mouth.
Maybe 2 people, one for the clarinet, one for the Talkbox.
Yes. Oh my God,
I love
yes,
that.
please. Yes, okay, we're on it, Brad. We're so on that. And then I saw Colin Lawson. Oh no, I'm saying the wrong Lawson. I'm Colin Stetson.
Okay.
The saxophonist. He's like 200 pounds of muscle. And he did this Adult Swim set on YouTube, and he has something taped to his neck. And so while he does the singing while playing, and it's so loud because he's amplifying it. So guys, there's so much stuff out here, and gals, and everybody else. There's just a million things to try, and it's really just a matter of keeping going. So stay tuned.
And kind of piggybacking off of that in terms of like, other people, like, the precedent that is out there and like other people that are also doing this too. I figured I'd give a shout out actually to a few artists that y'all should check out too. There are people that are either experimenting with pedals themselves, or they're experimenting with like electronic backing track and adding digital effects in later. And so these are some people, if you're interested in this sort of stuff, there are some other artists out there, like actually there was a presentation earlier in this conference actually. So if you check out, I think it's Spotlight Recital number 2 for ClarinetFest, Cocaine Clarinets, has an awesome set of stuff by Chris Hine, that is essentially like clarinet meets EDM, kind of, and I loved it. It was such a pleasant surprise. Probably my favorite presentation so far of the recital. And some other people you can check out. There's an Australian clarinetist known as Clary Loops, and she specializes in delay, looping, a lot of ambient sounds in particular. And you can find them on Instagram and a little bit on YouTube as well. There's some great music there. For any of you that are fans of electric flute potentially, Melissa Keeling is a person to check out. She's got some really rockin' sounds going in terms of delay, distortion. She was one of the people that I was listening to a lot when I first started doing effects, and she was kind of an inspiration for me as I started doing this. And then there's another that I'm sure will come to me later. But like, again, if you just like follow some stuff, like follow some pedal demos on YouTube and just do some searching, it's surprising what you'll find. Or even just electronic wind instruments. You'll find some really cool stuff out there. Oh nice, Brad. You already know if Claire lives. Sweet. Emphasizes how much audio production and engineering is needed in classical music. Yeah, actually, Brad, it's like, what's funny is that, like Tim said, this is not new at all. It's been around for it's like 70 years at this point. Well, 60 maybe. But it's seen such a resurgence in the last 20 years. It really has. So like a lot of the pieces you'll see on that repertoire list are from like 2006 onwards, which like you said really speaks to how much classical music can evolve in that sense. That was something that I was emphasizing to a group that I was presenting to a week or two ago, which shout out to Guardians Drum Corps. I was speaking with them about how classical music in some ways has kind of I hate to say stagnated because that kind of has a bad connotation, but what I've really enjoyed about the last 20 years is that people are really experimenting in cool ways in terms of how to expand the genre, like starting to do like some cross genre collaborations, classical mixed with jazz or classical mixed with funk. It's really cool to see classical musicians really digging in and testing the waters in terms of how they can push the genre. And so like audio engineering, pedals, all that sort of stuff is starting to be one of those aspects of clarinet performance that is really starting to take off. And that's something I've really enjoyed about ClarinetFest in particular, actually, this year, is that it's done a really good job of highlighting just the variety of different compositions now. And people are doing some really great things right now in the classical music world. And this conference has really highlighted that idea. So that's really cool.
Amen. Well, that's about all I got.
Okay.
What do you think?
And so I think I've got that all pretty much covered. I will go ahead and do a shameless plug, though.
Heyo.
For those of you that are already using effects or want to get into it, even though you haven't used it, there is a composition consortium happening right now. For those of you that are familiar with the works of Jenny Brandon, she writes wonderfully for clarinet, and her and I are teaming up on a project to commission a new work for clarinet and delay. And it's actually looking to be a piece that is a combination of clarinet with reverse delay and digital delay. And we're really excited about how this is forming. So, feel free to either reach out to me through my website. I think the website name is mothersoulclarinet.com/Brandon Consortium. Or you can email us or me. So you can use clxclarinet@gmail.com is our probably the best way to contact us, I'd say. And just let us know you're interested, or what kind of delay pedal we're talking about. So the one on my board is the one we're going to be recommending to people in particular, which has both the reverse delay and the digital delay functions in there. And there are various buy-in options for the consortium. So if you haven't used digital effects before, we have options that kind of Kickstarter style include the pickup and the delay pedal when you buy in at a certain level. That way you've got almost everything you need to get the piece started, other than perhaps the amp /PA. And we're happy to give recommendations in that regard too.
Yep.
But yeah, and then doesn't look like we have any outstanding questions left. So I will go ahead and say thank y'all so much for watching. And this video is going to stay up as well on our channel. So if you've got a question that you think about later and you're like, oh, I meant to ask that, feel free to leave a comment down on this, and we'll answer that too. Because I understand there's a lot to think about with this sort of stuff, but once you dive in, it's such a fun roller coaster. And it's good, and it's awesome to see that so many of y'all are interested not only in trying this out in performance, but even just listening to this sort of stuff. It's really cool to see classical music head in this sort of direction, whatever direction that ends up being. So until then, like I said, thanks again for tuning in. For those of us on Eastern Time Zone, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. For those of you in the rest of the world, have a great rest of your day. For some of you, I think it's in the morning, so you've got a whole day ahead of you. So thank you for tuning in no matter what time zone you're in. But there's other stuff to check out on ClarinetFest, so go ahead and check that out as well. In fact, I think there's another electroacoustic presentation happening by Ian McIntyre that y'all can find. I can't remember what day it is. I think it's in a couple weeks or something like that. But you can find it in the program. And that's another thing worth checking out. It's a really cool electroacoustic presence here at ClarinetFest this summer.
Oh yeah.
So,
we'd love to see it.
So in that case, we'll go ahead and sign off. But go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We've got some more demos. We've got some more pieces heading your way. So that's kind of your best way to finding out when all this stuff comes out. And we'll see you next time.
Okay. Toodles.